Hi, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity. And today I have a really special guest who has some interesting stories to share with us. His name is Dr. Dustin Roberts. Dr. Roberts, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dustin Roberts, and I am a recent PhD graduate, and I'm very thankful to be on your show, Dr. Cybersecurity. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me.
That is wonderful, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a holistic cybersecurity engineer. I have kind of a different outlook on cybersecurity. I focus more on people and work my way to technology rather than technology going towards people. So I'm kind of a unicorn in the cybersecurity world, similar to you.
Wow. Now, the funny thing is that we shouldn't be unicorns because that's the way it should be done, because it's always people first.
Right. Always, with everything. I mean, who wants technology to be more important than they are?
Right.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. I don't meet very many people who focus on the people side first.
Yeah, because once we figure out the people, we can go from there, right?
Absolutely.
And
so what topics do you want to talk about? What things do you want to share with us? What can we talk about today?
Well, I would like to talk about what encourages people to follow information security policies. Great. Which is really important because a lot of people don't understand them. They don't even know they exist.
Yeah. So what did you find in that area?
Well, I found a lot of things, really. I found that people weigh the consequences and the rewards before they take certain actions. You know, sometimes a business professional might not know, do I click on this link? Do I not click on this link? What do I do? What are the consequences? Right? I also learned that deterrence plays a huge effect. However, sometimes it's negative. Sometimes fear encourages people to break the rules or resentment. So what I found, which is really important, which is really highlighted in your book,
Cybersecurity Leadership.
Yes, is that encouraging people from the top down to be the best they can through rewards and benefits is much greater than punishment and fear. And when you do that, people are more inclined to follow the policy. If they know there's a bonus, a reward, a pat on the back, they're more inclined to follow the rules. Whereas if they know they don't follow the rules, they're going to be fired, terminated, there's consequences, it generates fear, and it doesn't work as well. It just doesn't.
That is wonderful. This is exactly the kinds of studies that need to be done a lot more, because that was exactly my experience in 30 years. Because I found that people love games or gamification and making award for the best unit that had the most innovative, I say, compliance record or whatever you may call it. Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah. So you found that. That's amazing. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. And that's kind of where you came in as being an outlier. You were part of my population for my qualitative research on what encourages information policy compliance behavior. So all the technical CISSPs went straight to firewalls, deterrence, etc. You went straight for encourage them to follow the rules through incentive, gamifications, building relationships with each other, showing them that what you're learning here, it can be taken at home, and you can use this cybersecurity awareness on your devices and protect yourself and your family as well. Yes.
So that is wonderful. Now, what was very funny was that I should not have been the outlier. So that kind of shows us the problem in the industry, right? Because everybody is trying to do this, all this technology stuff, and they're forgetting the people. And my research and my philosophy has always been that there is more information in people's minds in any organization than there is in any system.
Right.
And the amazing thing, the information in the minds of people are far more valuable than in any system. I
Yeah.
haven't found that to be like in any organization. I've never seen static information data to be more valuable than the people.
Yes. And what's ironic and interesting and what's brought us here is the people who aren't forgetting about people are the bad guys. The bad guys know the people are the exploit. They're the ones that are going to click on the phishing link that's going to download the ransomware that's going to make them rich. So as white hats, as the good guys, we need to think about people too. If we protect the people, we protect the organization. That's right.
So very well said. Yes. And that is such a great leap from that finding to what the effect is, right? Because that's exactly what is happening. Because in general, technology is very hard to break through. And as long as you have maintained your technology, it's going to take a lot of work, right? Because we all, even criminals, have to worry about the work. If we make it harder to enter our house, criminals will probably go to the next house, right? So it's a similar kind of a concept, right? If the people are not aware, not trained, and we're leaving them vulnerable, then that becomes a huge entry point.
Yes. During my research and interviews with CISSPs, the Certified Information System Security Professional, almost all of them, once they realized where this was going, were like, oh, of course, you know, we're not talking about technology here, we're talking about people. And then I got a lot of responses such as, you're the future of what's going on here, because the tools will come and go. The people don't. The people are there to say there'll always be people dealing with technology. So we have to start there. Yeah. And everything, things
So
like
you've got some of your respondents to start thinking that way?
once they understood the how to encourage information security policy compliance, it becomes very obvious. You know, how do you encourage people to follow policy through firewalls? Or the technical side. The technical side we can almost do on its own without dealing with people. They're two separate things. So for the last 10, 15, 20 years, up to a few years ago, it's all technical, firewalls, whatever. Now that the bad guys realize to get in, they go through people. It opened up this whole realm of how important it is to train people on how to be secure. And also the leadership. This is where I think you're really the pinnacle of this cybersecurity field, is training leadership how to understand that it goes down, that it's really up to them to encourage and train the people at the bottom to get with the program and understand. If it doesn't start at the top, or the top isn't included, it just doesn't work.
Right, because the culture starts from right there.
That's right.
So it's amazing that after I actually participated in your study, and then when you shared the findings and found out that I was an outlier, it was very funny. That's how I've often opened my introduction to people, because people said, tell me a little bit about yourself. I said, well, I just found out that I'm an outlier. You can call it a rogue or whatever, but here's where it is.
So I uploaded all my participants' transcripts into a logistic report that in vivo that looks at the words, right? And then it puts them together and sees the similarities, etc. I should show you the graph, because everyone is here and you're way over here.
Well, I saw that in your dissertation, I believe.
Yeah, it's in there. It's there's a lot of expressions that were used by you that weren't used by everyone else. The things that you say about motivating through fun, games, positivity, reinforcement, personal development, bringing your inner greatness out. If you do that, it solves the problem of the human liability as being the weakest link, right? It's in every recent dissertation that deals with cybersecurity says the human agent is cybersecurity's weakest link. It all boils down to people. So we need to start there. And I'm the only, me and you are one of the very few that have done dissertations on, behavioral compliance. You did yours on a quantitative and I did mine on qualitative.
Right.
That's why I feel so blessed to have had you in my body of information.
It was actually amazing how we found each other. And then to top it all, we have that common link where your dissertation chair was Dr. Celeste Chamberlain, who actually is somebody I got notice of, and then through her husband, and then I actually onboarded her and hired her to teach in my program. And during that time, she was just an amazing professor. And then we met at IC Square's Security Congress one year. It was 2019. I think that was the last year the Security Congress was in person. So I know that she's in the audience today, and we're going to network later. But yeah, I mean, that it's amazing how sometimes fate puts interesting and important people in touch with other people who could be very significant in many ways.
Yeah. And for me, when all this stuff came together, it just reinforced that I was on the right track. Things like that don't really happen on accident. They just kind of come together. And I felt really blessed to have had Dr. Chamberlain as my mentor. Not only was she wonderful, but she's become my friend, and I really value my relationship with her. She's doing big things, and I hope to be more like her as I develop as a doctor and a cybersecurity professional. Yeah, and like you too.
No, but nobody should be like anybody, right? You should be the top in your domain, because your domain is definitely different. My domain is different. Her domain is different. So my philosophy is nobody should ever try to be like someone. We're already born unique, right? Why should we ever give that up?
Right.
Right. We want to be the top in our field, and we absolutely can.
Right.
Because cybersecurity is huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I feel like there's so much room to grow in the holistic and human element of cybersecurity. We just need to get the information out there and how important that is. I think a lot of companies don't realize that. In fact, I had a meeting today with a really professional cybersecurity person that makes software and whatever. And when I shared with him my philosophy on cybersecurity, he said, wow, I really hadn't thought about that yet. And I think you're right. All of a sudden, the value that I brought increased. And I who knows, maybe I'll get a call back, because he doesn't have anyone on his team that focuses on people first. They all focus on development, program development.
But you should be making some videos and things like that. I would recommend make at least 10 videos, each maybe 1 to 2 minutes long or something, talking about these various things, snippets that you found, etc., because we need a lot of voices. That is part of the problem. I cannot be the lone voice. It should have been the flipped around. From all your respondents, the outlier should have been the one who's only talking about technology and not talking about people, policy, technology as a holistic cybersecurity thing, because you cannot do it without the people.
That's right. And it was actually very difficult to find expressions and writings that had to do with anything that had to do with people in the realm of IT and information assurance. It's all about programs and software and firewalls. And it's like, hey, wait a second, time out. None of this stuff does anything without the end user. So let's start at the end user and we'll work our way there.
Right. And part of the reason, so this is one of the reasons why I have now basically decided that the next university I join, if I'm not able to do a doctoral program in cybersecurity, there's no point in my joining, because I don't want to propagate the nonsense that is being taught in most universities today.
Yeah.
Because they're not teaching holistic cybersecurity. So why? Because we don't have the faculty. You see, part of the reason my faculty were successful was because after I personally recruited the people who would kind of think holistically, I then onboarded them, because I could care less what they taught or if they've been teaching for 10, 15 years. As a matter of fact, most of the time, somebody teaching for 10, 15 years was useless to me, because they had so much things to unlearn that it would be very difficult for me to make them unlearn that. So this is why in my program, I loved people like Dr. Celeste Chamberlain, and there were many, many. I hired about 60 people like that and onboarded with this philosophy of teaching holistic. And then the graduates that were coming out of from my program were very different. They're radically different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to do any, unless I'm able to do the Doctor of Science program, where I'm producing the faculty members that the future is going to need. See, if I could produce, say, 5,000 faculty members through that program, now we're going to make a change, because those faculty members would go to the various universities and then start to teach it properly.
Right. Wouldn't it make sense for a well-rounded cybersecurity engineer to understand both the holistic side and the technical side? So we're actually limiting ourselves by not doing that. I think there should be classes on the holistic cybersecurity part. You almost don't even have to have a computer to train that stuff. You talk about the same stuff that you talk about and bring inner greatness out, about having a hero board next to the time clock, having images and things that employees can read that encourages them to follow the cybersecurity policy and not violate things. You know, those things don't have anything to do with my computer. They have something to do about encouraging people to follow the rules. In the right way, not the wrong way.
Not only following the rules, but also innovating perpetually, right? Because if you saw the model in chapter 1 of cybersecurity leadership, we're talking about perpetual innovation done by people. Now, if we can establish that perpetual innovation culture throughout an entire organization, can you imagine where that organization would go? So that is why I've always said that cybersecurity is a revenue center. It's never a cost center. Yet, in about half of the US organizations that I researched, 50% of the US organizations run their IT and cybersecurity and all that through the chief financial officer. That is like a bus driver driving an airplane without a flying license.
Yeah.
You see?
Right.
And that's what's happening. And that's crazy.
It is. I think a lot of it goes to the HR departments as well. Somehow the HR department gets stuck with figuring out how to train their employees on how to be secure, and they don't know anything about that. In fact, the HR people are attacked more than anyone else.
This is another brilliant point. I love it. Yes, because what they do, and they've been dumped with this responsibility, and people take it as a chore, a negative, as a necessary evil. So they dump it there, and all they have to do is keep the records, and then they outsource that with somebody. So as long as somebody produces some videos and all that, and they can click through the videos and answer some questions, hey, we've done cybersecurity awareness training.
Yeah, or forcing their employees to sign something. You know, sign this. So if you click a ransomware, you're accountable and we're not. Things like that. Like, how is the average person supposed to know what they're looking at if they're not trained? So training, that's another thing that was the common thread. Every single person I interviewed said training is the most important thing. Then you go, wait a second, why are we talking about technology when you just told me that training is the most important thing?
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, wait a second, let's talk about training and then we'll get to the technical part. If this employee even has that capability to, or deals with that in their job at all. Right. Every person that's in the business world that has a computer in front of them should know the basics on locking the computer, getting a fax out of the printer within 2 or 3 minutes, the simple stuff. That's not complicated to understand. Every employee should know that.
So why don't you tell us some of your future plans? So where are you headed? So it looks like you have done some amazing research. I love that passion. Where are you headed? What's the plans? What's in the plans for Dr. Dustin Roberts?
Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you for asking me about that. Everyone loves to talk about, you know, what they're doing and what their passions are, right? So I'm trying to join the Navy.
Okay.
I've learned that there's a cybersecurity cyber warfare engineer position in the Navy that is very exciting. And basically you have to have a high level of education within the field to get that role. So I'm trying to get into the Navy, and I know they're going to do a bunch of great things with me. They're going to give me an opportunity to learn new skills. They're going to help me pay down my student loans, as well as giving me an opportunity to harness what I do best. I'm really excited about that. And the sky's the limit, you know. After the Navy, you know, I'll have all kinds of security clearances and skill sets, and I'll probably go into, this is way down the road, but possibly military contracting, or maybe working with a startup firm that's doing something special, something different. And of course, I would like to work for a company like Google or Amazon. I like to think that they need someone like me because of their scale. Yeah.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. So Dr. Dustin Roberts, We have had an absolutely fascinating and amazing conversation, and I'm sure our audience members who are going to watch it later in the recording are going to absolutely love it. So thank you very much for coming and chatting. And of course, we will network with our audience members today also right after this show.
That sounds wonderful. I'm really grateful to you for having me, and your books are magnificent, and I highly recommend them for everybody, including people who are not in the cybersecurity field. It's applicable to absolutely everybody. It was a wonderful listen. I listened to them both. They're great.
I truly appreciate that. Thank you very much.